I'm going to do a relatively quick wrap-up video here at the end, just to hopefully wrap up any loose ends or answer any questions that I didn't cover in the rest of the video. The firewall here is no big deal. It's just an 1/8 inch piece of plywood that I put on. Again, you can see the cross member here for support of my fuel tank. It's this area here on the plans. It's this area in here where they show that fat piece of plywood on both sides, on this side and on the other side. And obviously I elected not to put that in. I was assuming that that was only for the if you're going to use the Model A Ford engine, there's that shelf area that's in here, and that was side support. But I would imagine with this is filled up in here with some corner blocks for the motor mounts, and then this is gusseted, and of course it gets the outside plywood on the whole side. With that and this big piece of ash, and it's the same way, it's got a block in here and it's gusseted, and then of course this is going to be epoxy across this whole length. This is a very sound structure. I don't think this is a requirement, so I didn't put it in, which I kind of talked about in the video. These little additions here, this is just another piece of plywood. This is something that I elected to do. This is going to be tied in with my fuel tank stuff along with this. So you can kind of ignore these. That's all that is. It's just how I'm going to mount my fuel tank, which will be in a different DVD. That metal plate over there, again, is nothing more than a spacer for this piece. The motor mounts have to fit through there. So after I put the floor on, I came back and I added this piece, which is on the plans, and then I just left a gap on the ends in here for the motor mounts to slip in. I'll have to notch the firewall down in that area for the motor mount, but you can see that I left a gap here on the end of this piece. And then I didn't talk a whole lot about the seat bottoms, just because they're very straightforward and they're in the plans. You can build them as is. This is my plywood, obviously, for the front of the seat. You can ignore all the mess, all the other stuff that's in the way, like string and clamps and metal pieces, parts. I put my fuselage back together since making that first segment, because I'm working on my tail stuff, so you can just kind of ignore any of that and just concentrate on the fuselage stuff. Again, I didn't talk a lot about the seats, because the actual seat bottoms, because they're pretty straightforward. You can make them the plans. Mine is quite a bit different because I lowered it, as I said. This cutout is different because I'm using a push-pull tube system, which is different. And then I've got this back here, which I'll cover in a different video. This is part of my control system. This is going to be for an idler arm for the push-pull tube. You can kind of ignore that. So with all these push-pull system changes, this seat has been changed quite a bit, and I didn't want to cover it in this fuselage video. I'll cover that more in the control video. Coming back up here to the cowlings, again, I didn't cover the cowlings in a lot of detail, if any, because I wanted to cover that in a cowling video, because I'll cover this cowling, and the cowling that will be here covering the fuel tank, and then whatever goes up front over the engine. I think that's going to be a separate video. My plan right now is to have this epoxied in plywood permanently, and to have this one epoxied plywood in place permanently. So the only thing that will be removable will be this one up here for the fuel tank and the one up here for the engine, and those will probably be aluminum, but I'm planning on having these plywood. Again, that will be covered later in a different DVD. This is the inside of the front. Again, I said these openings were to get access for the cabane fittings. You can see this plywood here is permanently in place. It's already been epoxied, and I've got these angle brackets here to help support it. And it's glued along the front edge here of this tray. This piece is glued down in here on the front edge. This is going to be left as is for now until I do the cowling work, so I didn't discuss that. There's my big seat cutout. There's my access for the storage area. And you can see I'm planning on using a magnet type mechanism. I've got another magnet that needs to go over here, but this is going to be held on with magnets instead of hinged. It's just something that I wanted to do. Turtle deck, again, just a decorative reinforcement that I decided to do. The stringers with the bullet shapes, the plywood bulkheads epoxied in with the stringers. Now I'm getting back here to the tail, which is now in place, but here's another decorative plate. And then of course you got the fuselage itself with its reinforcements, its cross members, and that's pretty much it. That's the fuselage. Ouch, I just hit my workbench. But anyway, there it is, and I really don't know what else to say. Whatever details were not covered in this video will be covered in other videos, such as the cowlings and the pilot seat, how I made my pilot seat and why, because of the push-pull tube system. So that's really all I can come up with now. I'll do my ending narration here in a moment, and hopefully move on to hint video number 6. Hey everybody. Just wanted to say real quick again, thanks for checking out my YouTube videos, and just a couple of real quick tidbits before you leave. If you'd be so kind as to check out my GoFundMe page, the link is down in the description of these videos. For those of you who find it in your heart to donate for this new cause of mine, I've got another project going on, and there's some really cool things I'd like to do with this aircraft, and again, that's all explained in my GoFundMe. But if you find moved enough to go do that and donate, I've got this horizontal stabilizer skin, and donors will get their name put on this skin, and ultimately when this gets filled and the aircraft gets finished, this is going to be hung up on the wall of honor in my hangar. Just a little bit of recognition for those donors who helped make the project a reality. Another thing too is, I'm sure you've noticed that even this video that I'm making right now is of the same or worse quality than the video that you just watched, and that's because, believe it or not, this camera is the exact same camera that I filmed the original hint videos with. So I just wanted to point that out. I'm not really sure why, but I know the video quality lacks, but hopefully the information within is worth something. And the other thing that I want to mention real quick is, again, these are little snippets from my hint video DVDs, so a lot of these individual clips just kind of come to an abrupt end. That's just the way it is when I'm trying to rip these DVDs apart and re-edit them into small little segments, and they just kind of end weird at times. But that's it. That's all I wanted to say. And again, thanks, and I hope you'll come back, check out my channel, and see if there are any new videos and updates. All right, I'll talk to you then. See you.